Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction as a non-BFF. I certainly will remember it. I wish to thank the organizers of that forum, the Flag Anti-Death Penalty Task Force, the universities, for organizing this forum and for inviting me to participate in it. I am both grateful and honored. This is an important initiative, a timely initiative, and one which I support wholeheartedly. I think it's an important benchmark, the first. I don't think it will be sufficient, and there should be many more after that, but this is a very important first benchmark. The United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, UNODC, estimate that worldwide some 29 million people who use drugs suffer from some kind of drug disorders, while drug trafficking by transnational criminal cartels is a major source of violence and insecurity the world over, affecting every society. Drug trafficking is also a major source of corruption, undermining both the rule of law and good governance, and eroding public trust. Altogether, trafficking, abuse, and their consequences constitute major threats to the lives, health, dignity, and hope of millions of people and their loved ones. In response to the challenge, almost a year ago to the day, heads of state and government assembled at the United Nations headquarters to consider a global plan of action, which they called our joint commitment to effectively addressing and countering the world drug problem. This is not a perfect commitment, and some people in the room may probably disagree with some aspect of it, but it is an important benchmark, yet again, in the fight against the drug problems, but in particular in the way the drug problems is being defined and analyzed. It's a long document, and I just want to highlight a few aspects of it. They have approached the drug issue in a comprehensive fashion. It takes into account a range of human and other factors that drive the drug problems, including social development, public health, economy, justice, human rights. It calls, the joint commitment calls for effective approach, far more effective than the punishment or punitive model that some governments had adopted. The joint commitment urged everybody, governments in particular, to uphold the inherent dignity of all individuals. It is a rights-based approach to tackle drug problems. The joint commitment also recognized that drug dependence is a complex health disorder. In fact, we'll hear far more about it throughout the day. It recognized that the causes and the consequences can be responded to. Some of them can be prevented. And that requires scientific, evidence-based treatment, care, and rehabilitation programs, including community-based. The world leaders a year ago recognized the important role played by scientists and civil society organizations involved in drug-related treatment services. And they committed to intensify their role and the cooperation with civil society, and I hope today's meeting is a reflection of that. The leaders a year ago denounced repeatedly drug-related corruption. They decried its role in the obstruction of justice, including through intimidation of justice officials. They promised to elaborate effective, scientific, evidence-based prevention strategies that are centered on the needs of individuals, families, and communities. They committed to promote proportionate national sentencing policies, practices and guidelines for drug-related offenses. And throughout the document, which is a fairly large document, governments reaffirm the importance of systematic data collection, of evidence gathering, of scientific research, and of the sharing of information. Again, I think today we are contributing to this very important effort and recognition by government. What governments did not do a year ago, all of them, including the government of the Philippines, what governments did not commit to do last year, was a war on drug approach. Quite the contrary. They called for what amounts to be a balanced, multifaceted, multidisciplinary approach. And they placed great emphasis on health, rights, and justice. What they did not do was to suggest that death penalty was an appropriate and effective response to drug trafficking, let alone drug use. Instead, they spoke about proportionate sentencing and alternative punishment. Of course, the document is not perfect. The joint commitment has been criticized by activists and a number of politicians from around the world for not considering more explicitly the role of harm reduction strategies, for instance. But in April 2016, the General Assembly of the world's government recognized explicitly that the war on drugs, be it community-based, national or global, the war on drugs does not work. And further, that many harms associated with drugs are not caused by drugs, but by the negative impact of badly thought out drug policies. The joint commitment to effectively addressing and countering the world drug problems is a call for action, but not to any kind of action. According to the world leaders, there are other ways, better ways, evidence-based, scientific ways of combating drug abuse and trafficking, ways that do not make matters worse. Badly thought out, ill-conceived drug policies not only fail to address substantively the problem, they add more problems, as has been well documented around the world, including by United Nations bodies and indeed by special rapporteurs, such as me, but also the rapporteur on health, the special rapporteur on the rule of law. The badly thought out, ill-conceived drug policies escalate, add, compound problems, such as killing, extrajudicial or by criminal gangs, the breakdown of the rule of law, vigilante crimes, torture, ill treatment and sexual violence, prolonged pre-trial detention, mandatory sentencing, disproportionate long sentencing for drug possession, detention in drug and rehabilitation center without a trial or a proper evaluation of drug dependency, non-consensual experimental treatment. All of those problems have been documented time and time again. And further, badly thought out, ill-conceived drug policies foster a regime of impunity, infecting the whole justice sector and reaching into societies, invigorating the rule of violence rather than the rule of law, eroding public trust in public institutions, breeding fear and leading people to despair. These have been well documented throughout the world. And let me be further clear. In none of the countries where the perverse consequences of ill-thought-out drug policies were reported, in none of those countries did the drug problem disappear. In fact, the exact opposite happened. And so we are here today and tomorrow to take stock, to learn from experts here and from abroad, those who have long considered, studied, and analyzed drug policies, environment, impact, and effectiveness. And we are here together to contribute to the implementation of the joint commitment by providing evidence and data to support better policies, by collaborating and cooperating across countries, across areas of expertise, across sectors of society, government, civil society, the medical sector, and others, listening to one another respectfully, politely, but engaging as well in robust exchange, developing proposals with and for the government of the Philippines, for all stakeholders and for the people of the Philippines, proposals on drug policies and responses that eventually will be effective and sustainable, taking into account the country's specific situation, history, and context, as well as its multiple assets and opportunities. To take part in these exchanges is truly a privilege, and I thank you for it. I will end my keynote speech by sharing a couple of more personal reflections. Those of us who are involved in human rights work know only too well that we are living in a world of intense disruption. Its symptoms and its footprint is there for all of us to see, apparent everywhere. Climate, people's movement, globalized economy, globalized crimes. But it is also the case that we are in the midst of a disruption of norms and values. The High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zeid Al-Hussein, has often lamented the caustic consequences of these disruptions. It is not merely that human rights are abused. They frequently are and frequently have been. What is exceptional is the fact that the very idea of human rights is being questioned, and in many places it is being rejected. And that constitutes a marked alteration of our environment, globally and locally, possibly the most significant human rights development since the establishment of the modern global and universal human rights system at the end of World War II. The attacks we are witnessing on universal, indivisible rights, the undermining of equality, dignity, and accountability, these share similarities wherever they take place, and unfortunately they are taking place in too many countries right now. There is even an extensive application, even advocacy, of a doctrine of global war. There is a certain conception of security narrowly defined and in opposition to genuine human security. There is a blurring of distinction between combatant and non-combatant, and an ever broader understanding of the enemy, including the enemy within. Most crucially, this rejection of human rights is predicated on a rejection of our common humanity. The reject, those that don't fit in, those that are not welcome, those that are to be rejected, criminalized, punished, they may differ from country to country, from community to community, from one leader to another. Be assured, of course, they are all human. They may be migrants or refugees. They may be the poor or the very poor. They may be the homeless, the street children, indigenous people. They are the other, and they may be drug users, drug pushers, or the so-called drug personalities. Any one of those and so many others who for a reason or another are denied their humanity and their human standing, their right to justice, to freedom, to protection from abuse, to protection from excessive use of force, to freedom of expression. They are denied as rights holders. They are denied as citizens. These profoundly disturbing developments are occurring at the hand of authorities that should and can know better. Their demonization and the unaccountable empowerment of authority that accompanies it pushes open a door onto an abyss, a void into which humanity has thrown itself before with awful consequences. Because, of course, one cannot deny the humanity of some people without losing humanity for all people. And so we are here today. I am immensely grateful for this invitation, for giving me the incredible opportunity to spend some time with you. Over the last 8 months, since I have been appointed UN Special Rapporteur, I have watched, and from afar, but never from too far, I have followed testimonies of the relatives of victims. I have seen the brave work of civil society actors, lawyers, human rights defenders, academics, politicians. I have heard debates between politicians, explanation by government officials. I have watched footage, and all are saying there are other ways, there are better ways, there are other options, and there are better options. This forum, with the commitment and the goodwill of all parties, from the government to civil society, from the police to the health sector, is an important benchmark to shine the light of scrutiny, of fact findings, of knowledge, of evidence, impartial and true, so that we may all together seek more clearly our way to prevent, respond, and support. This light of evidence will help identify and implement the best possible drug policies and intervention. This light will lead to rights being upheld, fulfilled, and enjoyed for and by all. An American Vice President, Hubert Humphrey, once observed, and I quote, "The moral test of government is how that government treats those who are in the dawn of life, the children, those who are in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those who are in the shadows of life." Peoples living in life shadows are not to be abandoned there. We are not to be abandoned there, because it concerns us all. And so I am deeply, deeply honored to have been involved in this journey with you, and deeply committed to continue on that journey with you, beginning with this 2 days conference. Thank you very much.